Flying is a mess of surprise fees, record-breaking lines, cramped seating, and even planes breaking while in the air. Yes, flying sucks now, everybody, and sadly, it's going to get worse. Today's video is sponsored by Ground News. Alright, so despite the airline industry making more than it ever has, flying today objectively sucks more than it ever has. It seems like every announcement today that you hear about planes is that there is a new fee or a complimentary service that has now become an upgrade that you must pay for. Not only that, but there has been so much drama and bankruptcies in the industry that it seems like every week the future of air travel is up in the air. But the worst part is that it wasn't always like this. Flying used to be a high-end, luxury, bougie experience. And today, it's more like public transit in the sky. And in this video, we're going to talk about exactly how that happened and what is coming next. So if you look back to some vintage airline commercials, or you watch a movie with those well-dressed characters sipping cocktails from their window seats, the lavish experience that flying once was seems kinda hard to believe. In the 1950s, when commercial flights were just starting out, the average flying experience included fresh cooked meals, ample leg room, and passengers dressed to the nines. Flying was a luxury experience, and this is known as the golden age of flying. But here's the thing. Back then, an economy flight from New York to London cost the equivalent of $4,000 today. Basically, in the golden age, flying was great, but it was only for those who had the money to pay for it. And before you hop into the comments and say, yeah, well, you can still find that luxury flying experience today if you're willing to pay for it. Yeah, that's true. There's like a million YouTube videos on it if you also just want to see what it looks like without having to pay for it too. But the general shittiness of today's flying experience is becoming more and more widespread, and it's been happening for a while now. In those early days, the quality of flying was higher because it could be. Tickets cost more and fuel cost less, and they were competing with basically cruise liners. This wasn't flying for transport, this was a travel experience in itself that people do to look cool and flex on their rich friends or whatever. But all of this came crashing down in 1978 when the Airline Deregulation Act came into place. Before this, the federal government placed tight regulations on flying, including how much airlines could charge customers per ticket. Deregulating the industry meant that more airlines could be created, they could determine their own routes, and they could charge much less for tickets. And this was, weirdly, the downfall of flying as it once was. Now, if you haven't seen Phil Edwards' video on these olden days of flying, it's a really great video, but we are willing to say something about it that he just wasn't willing to say. That the problem and the downfall of flying today is because of poor people. We have seen the gradual and consistent lowering of fares for most flights for decades, giving more and more people the ability to explore new places, visit family, and even migrate to other countries. And the numbers show that more people are flying than in generations before, and in a lot of ways, I think this is a really good thing. But of course, there's a bit of a caveat here, because what we're watching with the airline industry is what we have seen across all industries, which end up in this race to the bottom pricing model. The most noticeable example of this is, of course, in the fashion world, where we went from high-quality garments, mostly worn by social elites, to $6 t-shirts that basically dissolve in water or whatever. We have a whole video about how clothes specifically have gotten way worse over time, and you should definitely check that out after this video if you haven't already. But there's other examples too. Tesla started out making high-end luxury priced vehicles for the rich, and they have been slowly working their way towards a more mass market vehicle. But similar to Tesla's many quality control and safety issues along the way to this goal, the airline industry is struggling with this transition. Planes are literally falling apart. Workers are striking. A recent IT crash turned the entire air travel industry upside down. Broader awareness of carbon emissions are getting people talking, and videos of insufferable Karens and Kens going berserk mid-flight keep going viral. The current public perception of flying right now is pretty grim, to say the least. So bad, in fact, that terms like flight delays and flight delay compensation have been trending on Google for the past past few years. So yes, flying is a lot more affordable today compared to the 60s, which means that they are more accessible for more people. And this is kind of the point. But the ways that we are doing that today are increasingly making the experience of flying worse for people on planes, and in many cases, it isn't actually making the trips more affordable at all. But of course we wouldn't know about all of these things if it weren't for Ground News. They are an app and a website we've been partnering with for quite a while now, and they are dedicated to gathering thousands of news articles all in one place to give you the full context that you don't get in standard media. We keep working with them because we just love their platform, and we genuinely think that you will too. So feel free to check them out at ground.news/LH. Through Ground News, we found out not only when the workers at Boeing were preparing to strike, but also when the strike ended and the contract was approved. Each of these stories has over 200 sources covering it, with context to where each source falls in the political spectrum, how factually reliable they are, and who owns them. And another feature of Ground News is that you can compare all of these articles in one place, so you understand what's really happening. But probably my favorite part is their blind spot feed, which shows you what the left and the right are and are not focusing on. Here you get easy access to the other side's news reality to see the full picture of what's going on in the world. Plus, they're based in Canada, just like us, which is an added bonus, so we encourage you to dive right in by going to ground.news/LH, or you can just scan this QR code. And here's the thing, you can join for less than $1 a month, or use our link in the description to get 40% off their unlimited access Vantage plan, which is what we use here for this channel. So thank you to them for sponsoring this video, and let's get on with the show. The issues and problems facing our airline industry are mostly the result of low-cost carriers. Airlines like Spirit and Ryanair completely changed the travel world when they launched. Suddenly, you could get from London to Prague for 20 bucks. There were YouTubers talking about the $1 flights that they were taking, and everybody was like, holy shit, this is awesome. But quickly, we started to see the truth of how this was all happening and the reality behind the curtain. As you probably know, if you've taken any of these flights, Ryanair charges you a bunch of fees for a bunch of stuff that was previously just a part of flying. You're gonna be paying around 50 bucks for carry-on luggage, more than that if you wanna check a bag too, and it's 20 bucks if you wanna pick your seat. And sadly, this has become pretty standard. What's even more tricky though is the way that you get charged for things if you just wait to do them when you get to the airport. If you don't have a digital boarding pass and you need them to print one for you, you're gonna get charged. Or if you didn't check in online before you showed up, you're gonna get charged. And probably the craziest one is that if you don't have your name properly entered into the booking system when you sign up for this ticket, it's going to cost you the same as your flight again, most likely, to change it to the correct name. And the thing is, there's actually a term for this, like a business term for this, called unbundling, which is exactly what it sounds like. Airlines separating the amenities to make you purchase them all individually. You will very rarely actually pay the fee that is advertised when you first see the search results, and this is becoming an industry standard across all carriers. And the thing is, a lot of airlines unbundle their tickets with the explanation that it creates more options for passengers who want to buy a cheaper ticket, and maybe that's true. It could be a good thing for people who want to save cash by just foregoing luggage, or eating on a flight, but for most people, they aren't boarding planes with absolutely nothing on them or no appetite. But the sad part is it works. When you're searching for flights, last minute, you and your friends want to go to Vegas or whatever, and you see a deal, you click on it and you're like, holy shit, I need to get this right now, before you even think about all the other fees that might be coming after it. And look, maybe you've watched this video and you've read that blog post and somehow you skirt around all the booby traps that they've set for you, like Mission Impossible style or whatever. The problem is that the flight itself is still gonna suck more. Now that tickets are so cheap, they have had to pack in as many people as possible and make as much money from them as possible while they're held captive in the little tube in the sky. If you've ever been on a Ryanair flight, or even some North American airlines too, there's ads in the plane now, just like on public transit buses. But where they really make their money is with the upsells that you're being prompted to look at and say no to throughout the flight. And honestly, I just feel so bad for the flight attendants in this circumstance. Like, not only are they having to deal with considerably more people per flight, they have to spend more time peddling crap to uninterested passengers who just need to get to their destination as quickly as possible. But being sold something in the middle of an experience is only just the beginning, and they're likely to get worse, because as soon as one airline starts suggesting standing room tickets only or charging passengers for the bathroom, everyone else is going to follow suit because a new norm has been established. And this is the problem with cheap prices. It's just a never-ending downward spiral in search of the cheapest possible version of something without any consideration to the other factors at play. Price is the #1 factor in most people's consideration when buying something, right? So companies focus all their efforts on making that number as low as possible just to get you in the door. You buy a $10 pair of pants or whatever because it's a great deal, but then you just have to buy another pair of $10 pants a week later because they fell apart or they got screwed up in the wash. But the only reason that we now accept a terribly made $10 pair of pants made by a slave in a developing country that look weird and fall apart instantly is because we previously accepted a $20 pair of pants made by a different company in a slightly less terrible country a few years earlier. And that was once a $50 or $100 pair of pants made by somebody in your city or country who made a living wage from that job. And those companies and brands still exist, but you have to do a lot of research to try and find them. Now, of course, it is not just that simple. And industrialization has helped us solve some massive social problems. And it is a good thing that planes are for more than just the wealthy. But it is becoming more and more clear that this business model is hurting the industry in some pretty fundamental ways. The airline industry is having to cut more and more corners and do increasingly sketchy stuff to keep things in the air. And the crazy part is that it's not even working. Even though airlines made record-breaking revenue last year, higher costs such as fuel, wages, and interest rates are making it difficult to turn a profit. And what do you know? It turns out that low-cost airlines in particular are struggling really bad right now. And in a cruel and weird twist, prices have actually gone up. So we now have the exploding planes and the tickets that aren't even cheap anymore. It appears that we have really found rock bottom, and perhaps, maybe, things are changing. The Biden-Harris administration announced a new rule that all airlines must issue cash refunds to customers whose flights were significantly delayed or downright canceled.
That's all over now, thanks to Sploosh.
Airlines are also required to disclose upfront fees like the ones that we talked about earlier for things like baggage and swapping reservations. And there is a bunch of other logistical hurdles that could help the industry shift to a better position itself. But the reality is, we've taken it too far. Low-cost carriers and this kind of market competition was supposed to bring prices down and force airlines to put money into technologies to improve efficiency and fuel economy and optimize the airline industry to be as effective as possible. But what we have learned right now is that there is a limit to how low we can go. It's almost like people are starting to realize that saving $50 on their flight is actually not worth the hassle, or that in most cases they're not actually saving that much money anyways. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you don't like flying in planes, maybe try out trains or buses or a good old road trip. Look, there's lots of other options to get us around, and we appreciate you sticking around to the end of the video. So thank you for being here. And if you're subscribed, then we'll see you every single week for another episode.